All right, welcome everybody to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. I'm your host, Alan Ulrich, here with our special guest because Bob cannot be on the show tonight. My son, Matt Ulrich, you guys know him as Bud Rich over there on the Happy Hour podcast, Saints Happy Hour podcast. Some of you may have seen him on Twitter and stuff. So this is your trivia master over there with the Saints Happy Hour podcast. Okay, so the big news today, and that's why I got Saints Broncos footage playing behind me. Big news today: the trade finally occurred. Sean Payton has now been traded to the Denver Broncos. The Broncos have given up their first round pick, and that first round pick is kind of like that popular girl in high school. They've kind of been around the block a little bit. They were the original 49ers pick. That was traded to the Dolphins, so the Niners could trade up and select Trey Lance. Then that pick went from the Dolphins to the Broncos when the Broncos traded their former number one pick, Bradley Chubb, the defensive end, to the Dolphins. So it's the 29th pick of the
Yeah,
draft.
because Dolphins lost their first round pick after getting caught with tampering for Tom Brady and Sean Payton. So
Yeah.
Dolphins ended up helping the Saints one way or another.
So this is the 29th pick, though, right?
Yes. It is the third to last pick in the first round. It would have been 30th in a normal draft, but with how it all is, it's 29th.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. So so the Saints now have a first round draft pick. They also got the Broncos' second round pick in 2024. Now, I thought that the Broncos had traded next year's first rounder as part of the Russell Wilson deal, but that's not true, correct?
Yeah. So back in 2022, when they first made this trade, they traded those year's first and second round picks, and next year, and well, technically this year's first and second round picks to Seattle. So they would have had all their picks in 2024 to deal to the Saints. So now they sell their first round pick for 2024. Now they give us our second round pick, and we send our third round pick, which honestly is pretty easy to replenish. You can get it from compensatory. You could probably make a draft. You could probably make some sort of trade. I'm not fretting over a third round pick versus giving up like our swapping second round picks. I think that would have been a little foolish.
Well, we don't have a second round pick next year.
What's that?
That was part of the trade. The Eagles had that pick. That was part of the trade to move up to get Chris Olave. So getting the second.
I was saying that was actually the trade to get the second first round pick. The trade up to get Olave was the one when we sent our third and fourth round pick, as well as pick number 16 to Washington.
Okay. So we now have gotten back our first round pick, essentially a first round pick this year, this season. And we got our second round pick that we had given up for next season. So even though they're probably going to be lower than where we're probably going to end up, you don't know, but basically, for sure this year the first round pick is of the 10th overall pick. It's the 29th overall pick.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is, you have picks now. You've got the picks that you need to build this team, and this team is not a head coach or a quarterback away from playing this Sunday. Okay, two Sundays from now, they're not in that level. At best, they were probably going to be a one and done wild card team. So what's good about this is what you need when you have a lot of money tied up in the salary cap. You have an old team. You need the draft picks. So hopefully this means that we get draft picks now. And we can do something with it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was taking a look at some players that could, in theory, be available around where we pick, and it looks like a couple safeties, which we could use, some interior offensive linemen, edge rushers, wide receivers. I mean, quarterback-wise, I know some people are looking at that. I mean, you have maybe one or two players that you could theoretically talk yourself into, but if you wanted to like get a good starter or someone really exciting, or even just start looking to replace some of the older veterans, that's a it's a good place to really be at.
Look, the quarterbacks I see, this quarterback draft is not that deep of a class. It's Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud. Those are your two quarterbacks. They got that kid out of Kentucky, who they think is probably B's right up there with them.
Yeah, well,
But after that, there's really a cliff. To me, is a cliff drop. Okay, between those three up there and then the rest of the draft class. So
yeah.
you could see somebody sliding to 29 if you really like them. And to me, I think there's quarterbacks that are going to be available in the second and third round.
You're better if you. I'd say after Will Levis, you might as well not even take a quarterback in the first round unless you're really patient.
Right. I mean, you got Hooker from Tennessee with the bad knee.
Mm-hmm.
How does he respond to that? How does he do in the interviews? How does he do in his pro day, the combine, and so forth? You've got Anthony Richardson, who I think is a project, needs a lot of work. He's not a guy ready to start on day one. And I mean, hell, Stetson Bennett, I think he's a day 3 pick. He's probably another Brock Purdy, somebody you might want to pick up if you were to draft. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that the Saints get stuck, okay, and all they got is Dalton, all right, and they couldn't swing a deal for any other quarterback. So you've got Andy Dalton, and you're going to take a shot at a guy like Hooker. To me, I'd take a shot at Bennett in the 7th or 6th round if he's still there.
Yeah.
Let those two fight it out. What the hell?
Yeah, there's some. Yeah, Hooker, I think he's talented, but you kind of worry about that knee, though. According to Hooker in the interview with Senior Bowl, because Senior Bowl practices started today, as well as official measurements, he said he's progressing well and should be available by training camp. So that does kind of help him. You do want him back for OTAs and minicamp so he can at least learn the playbook and get familiar with some players. But being back by training camp is pretty huge. Lamar, see your comment, Calvin. Richardson,
right.
Yeah, I mean, Anthony Richardson, I actually did look a bit of film on him. He's got some things I do like. I do love how he does well at feeling and reading pressure, because there's times he does a great job taking step-ups, moving around while keeping his eyes downfield, even while on the run. But he's just wildly inaccurate. I think he has too low ball placement, doesn't really have an arc, and he's a lot like Cam Newton, except he doesn't have that explosion year like Newton had in 2010. And there's one more quarterback I actually kind of liked watching. That was BYU's quarterback, Jaron Hall, who fortunately both Saints quarterback coach DJ Williams and offensive coordinator Ronald Curry can both have close look at to see if he's worth a early day 3 pick.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm just throwing this out. If you have to take a quarterback in this class, what are you going to do? And I said the same thing about Malik Willis last year. I thought Malik Willis was way, way, way overhyped because it was such a weak draft class for quarterbacks, and it kind of showed when he played at Tennessee this past season when he had to start. He was not accurate with his passing. He had a terrible sense of feel in the pocket. He looked like a raw quarterback. Yeah. So, I mean, you're going to get it. That's why I said this class, I feel like it's those two, Young and Stroud. We'll put Levi in there just because somebody's going to take him third. But after that, I just feel like it really the bottom drops out, and you're looking at, the kind of players you saw this year. A Riddler, the kid from Ole Miss. I can't think of his name right now.
Matt
Corral, and Malik Willis, raw quarterbacks that worked well in a college system, but need a lot of work before they're ready to play in the prime time. You might be able to get something out of one of them for a little while, but he's got to develop too. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just
Will Levis just is too much of a risk quarterback. I mean, I could see the Saints perhaps trading up for him if he falls out of the top 5, but I don't. But if someone does trade with Chicago to go get Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, and then Houston takes whoever is left, I don't see Will Levis getting past Indianapolis at number 4 at all because they need a quarterback.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. You have more teams that need quarterbacks than you have quarterbacks available.
Yeah.
So the draft aside, because there are other players I like better at 29, but the draft aside, let's look at possible movement on veteran quarterbacks who are out there.
Mm-hmm.
The two big names that come up the most, Derek Carr and Jimmy Garoppolo. What is your impressions of them?
Both quarterbacks are mass improvements from what we currently have, but won't take you over the top. Like these are if how Mickey Loomis and Dennis Allen visioned a team of, well, let's be playoff contenders because the division because the conference stinks.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the type of two quarterbacks I see that you put them on this team, you're in that playoff conversation. Heck, you might even swing a couple games your favor. You might win that Cincinnati game because you got a better quarterback versus Dalton. You probably might swing maybe another game. I can't think one off the top of my head. I don't want to say Tampa because
you probably do get at least one, if not both, those wins against Tampa.
Yeah, you might get that first game against Carolina.
Yeah, you probably get Carolina. You probably sweep Carolina too. I mean, that's the thing. You need to sweep that division. To win the division, you need to sweep it, or lose no less than one game.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I wanted to talk. We were talking before the show, but you mentioned what Dennis Allen and Mickey Loomis want to see in a quarterback for this team. But I think that what Mickey Loomis and Dennis Allen want to see is basically what you saw with the 49ers this past season when Brock Purdy came in. A team that wins with a great elite level defense, solid special teams, because the 49ers have a great kicking game, good running game, a good running game, and a quarterback who basically kind of just runs the show, doesn't have to make big plays, but runs the show. Now, of course, this past Sunday, we saw what happens when they lost the guy who could actually just run the show, and you had to put in Josh Johnson, who's been on like 13 teams. But yeah, I mean, and it's not fair for Josh Johnson because that game plan was set up for Purdy and the plays that they know Purdy can make. And Josh Johnson can't make those plays. You can't just plug anybody in there. But I think that's what the kind of quarterback they want. That's why a Garoppolo may work here if they can surround him with other talent. And that's why I like this trade that they made for Sean Payton, because you got the picks, some of the picks that you need, not all of them, but you got some of the picks that you need to start rebuilding this team into an image like the 49ers, where you don't have to have a playmaking quarterback, but you need a quarterback who can make plays for you, but also trust that won't screw up the game so your defense can win it for you.
Absolutely. I mean, they want a quarterback that, okay, we need you to throw here. Can you make this throw? I think Garoppolo can do it because he was asked to do that in San Francisco. I think Derek Carr is capable of doing that because there are times where he was asked to do it and he can do it. But, yeah, I mean, you just need to get the right players. I think you need to replace Pete. You need to get that complimentary running back. You just there's other things to worry about. And let's say things just don't go right, well, you have a good reset button because chances are you'll be in that top 10, arguably top 5, where you can get that big swing franchise quarterback.
Well, yeah, because clearly, you look at least 3 of the 4 teams that played Sunday. They have franchise quarterbacks. They have playmaking quarterbacks.
Oh yeah,
Bengals, Chiefs, and even the Eagles aren't in the championship games without their quarterbacks. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that said, Burrow looks a hell of a lot better throwing to T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, just like, Patrick Mahomes looks great throwing to Travis Kelce, and A.J. Brown got the Eagles offense going in the passing game. So, you need to have other weapons too, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, all 4 of them had great weapons to throw to, even regardless of who was that
those
quarterback.
guys can carry it over.
Yeah.
So my question then is, that's where we're going with this, Calvin. So my question is, okay, so if we get a veteran quarterback, well, let me back up a little bit. So we talked about Carr and we talked about Garoppolo.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's other quarterbacks out there that are rumored to be available for trade. Trey Lance is one. I have my own opinions about Trey Lance, but Trey Lance is one. Some people think that the Bears are actually going to try and unload Justin Fields because they're going to want Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud, which doesn't make any sense to me, but they have that. Do you think there's a possibility? And then, of course, the elephant in the room is Lamar Jackson with the Ravens.
And Aaron Rodgers with the Packers.
Oh, and Aaron Rodgers with the Packers. I forgot about him. Aaron Rodgers with the Packers. Do you think that any of those guys are a player that the Saints would trade for?
I'm going to go ahead and say cross off Rodgers and Jackson because the Saints are trying to get out of this cap situation. And if you're trading for Lamar Jackson, you're back at square one where you're going to sacrifice depth and perhaps some good young talent for an offensive quarterback that you're going to have to sacrifice at least a quarter, maybe even 2/5 of your salary cap to. And Aaron Rodgers if he's getting traded, he's going to the AFC. He is not going to. He's not going to be in the NFC if he gets traded. Now there's with Justin Fields and Trey Lance. Lance might get traded, though. I wouldn't give up more than 2 4th-round picks for him. But I don't think Dennis Allen is going to look at him going, yeah, this guy's going to save me my job, because he does see himself probably on the hot seat, and I think both Loomis and the front office are putting him on a hot seat because he didn't make any real coordinator change. He didn't really make any, big.
Oh, you lost your defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
You lost Ryan Nielsen. He's now in Atlanta. So one of your co-defense coordinators. You may lose Chris Richard too. So
if I think Richard might stay. I mean, you would have to give him the full defensive coordinator job with assistant coaching privileges tied up to that. But I'm talking about more on the offensive side. I mean, the only move you made offensively was getting rid of one of your run game specialists. I'm already drawing a blank on his name, but he's been with the team for a while.
Ronald Curry?
No. That's the passing game coordinator. No. He was he worked with O-line, then tight ends. I hate that blank.
Dan Rauschar?
Yeah, Rauschar.
Yeah, he's gone.
Yeah, he was the only, real offensive move that really they only made. And I feel like not making a switch on offensive coordinators probably kept him on a hot seat, and getting a guy like Trey Lance, who probably is another couple years away from being maybe a passable or good starter, is something that Dennis Allen just can't wait for. And Justin Fields, you're giving up, you're mortgaging the future for Justin Fields. You might as well just trade for the first overall pick if you're going to trade with Chicago.
I don't think they have the ammunition to trade up for Justin Fields because the Bears are going to want a lot of picks if they were to do this. Now, I can't see them doing this.
Yeah, I mean, the Bears will only trade Justin Fields if they feel like the offers that they're getting for Justin Fields versus that first overall pick basically are either equal or outweigh each other, or the offers for Justin Fields outweighs for the number one overall pick.
You took Justin Fields with the idea you're going to build a team around him. You now have the number one overall pick, which gives you the opportunity to build a team around him. So I can't see the Bears hitting. There's nothing that Justin Fields showed me where I'm going, okay, yeah, the Bears are done with him. It's not like Josh Rosen. Okay, Josh Rosen, it was clear that he was not going to be the guy. Justin Fields is their guy. So, the big thing is you're going to see, I think, the Saints are this is a rebuilding team. They knew this was going to happen. This team was built to self-destruct basically after Drew Brees retired. And Sean Payton knew that. He's rebuilt this team twice, actually 3 times, because he started in 2006, built it again in 2009, rebuilt it after, well, actually, I should say 2013, he started to build it again, but then rebuilt it in 2017. So, he was done with rebuilding. It was time again to rebuild this team. You could see that in 2021. So what this team is going to do is do what they did last time. They're going to try and put pieces together to be competitive while turning the roster over. You look at the roster in 2015 or 2014 versus what the roster like in 2018. Huge difference, almost a complete turnover.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think after 2014, Sean Payton took a look at his roster and said, "Okay, it's time to move on. It's time to move off quite a few people." And you saw the big trades that shook him up. Trading away Jimmy Graham, trading away Darren. Well, that was actually last year. They traded away Darren Sproles in the 2014 offseason, but also trading away Ben Grubbs, trading away Kenny Stills, the guy they drafted in the 5th round 2 years prior.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's probably
Brandon Cooks for a 1st round pick. You were turning over that team because you wanted to get younger and better. So you're going to see that happening here, where this team is still going to be competitive because they were competitive. They were 7-9 those 3 seasons while they were overhauling this roster. And then they got aggressive in 2017 and had 5 picks in the first 103 or 6 picks in the first 103 players. So, you're going to see that. The quarterbacks that they're going to bring in the meantime are guys that are bridge guys, placeholders, because you're not in a position to draft a great quarterback. You're in a position where you're going to probably get a project guy that's probably not going to be a very good passer, not an accurate passer. So it really screws up your offense because the offense is based off of timing. It's based off of guys running exact routes and quarterbacks being highly accurate, getting the ball out quickly, making multiple reads. A guy can run around for a while, but running quarterbacks aren't going to survive in the league. They can't.
So many of them got hurt. I mean,
look what you got look what you have right now. Jalen Hurts got hurt this year, missed a couple games. Both those games the Eagles lost. Right now, Patrick Mahomes is dealing with a high ankle sprain. Lamar Jackson is starting to feel the effects of running and being a running quarterback. The field is too small and players are too fast for a running quarterback, a quarterback who runs first, passes second, to survive long in the league.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to take the attitude of, well, we can always get another quarterback, we'll just keep throwing them out there and letting them get the hell beat out of them, and we'll just get another one. That's fine. You can take that approach and don't pay them. But if you're trying to build anything for long-term success, the quarterback has to mature into the pocket passer and get the ball out of his hands quickly, run when he has to, because otherwise the injuries add up. 17 games, that's a lot of punishment to take.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, like, probably only exception is probably Josh Allen, but he's a massive guy. I mean, he's 6'5", weighing 235 pounds. He can take a bit of punishment, but it's going to catch up to him within, I'd say, a couple years. I mean, you look at
he's maturing as a passer too.
Yeah, I'll say
it's probably one major injury, and he is not going to want to run anymore.
Oh yeah, I mean, probably the closest I'll say is, to him size-wise is Cam Newton. I mean, he ran around for a long time, but by 2018, he hurt his shoulder and he was done. He was completely done. And 2019, 2020, he just kept looking like a shell of himself.
He lasted 8 seasons. 2016 was his high point.
2015. Okay. That's when he won an MVP.
2015, the MVP. Okay.
Yeah.
After that, then the injuries start piling up, and you have to become a better passer. And that's why at 30, Cam Newton was done, whereas you look at a guy like Tom Brady, you look at Drew Brees, you even look at Aaron Rodgers, you look at Matthew Stafford, they're still playing into their late 30s now. And it's just the reality of the position. You can do it for so long, and then your body just can't take the punishment. You can't take those hits. Defensive linemen get tired of running after you. Eventually, they're going to find a way to hit you. Okay, they're gonna make you stop running because they're tired of it. So I mean that's just the reality. You don't have the wide open field. I mean, look at the picture I got up here. Okay, you see where the hash marks are in the middle?
Yeah,
that's a huge difference from college football, where the hash marks are further out.
Absolutely.
Why did Eddie Bush always get in trouble when he would try and run to the outside? Because the defense is already lined up in the middle of the field, because the hash mark's only 18.5 inches across.
Mm-hmm.
When he kept trying to get to the edge, the defense is, since they're in the middle of the field, not the narrow side of the field, there is no edge for him to get to. And these guys are faster than they are in college football. In college football, let's just take Georgia and Alabama, or LSU in 2019 versus Georgia or Alabama. Okay. Mm-hmm. How many pro guys are on those two teams? The most talented teams in college football. Between the two, 20, 22 guys maybe, who are pro level athletes. Okay. On the average college football team, there may be 4 who are going to play at the next level. In the NFL, it's 22 guys every week. So it's just it's just tough. It's tough. So that's, my thing with Trey Lance is too raw. He's a project. That's why he was he struggled. He has struggled in San Francisco. Now, granted, he's gotten hurt a couple times too.
Yeah,
he struggled. He went to North Dakota State.
He didn't even play football in 2020 because of COVID, because North Dakota State's an FCS, and they don't start football until late winter / early spring. So when COVID hit, he missed the entire season.
And he only started 1 year, not 4 years, not 3 years. So he needed the experience of just playing the position. That it's just it's all that kind of stuff. Justin Fields, we talked about already. So we've already mentioned we can't afford Aaron Rodgers. You don't want to trade for Derek Carr. You really want to. If you're going to trade for Derek Carr, you got to get the Raiders to eat most of that contract.
Yeah.
It's the same reason why we can't trade Michael Thomas.
Yeah, it is workable because it's mostly salary, not bonuses that has got to get fed to him. So it is something workable, but I rather wait to see if they release him rather than try and trade for him.
Yeah. The only reason why you would trade for him is because you want to make sure he doesn't hit the open market and risk losing to somebody else.
Mm-hmm. But I think
he's not so indispensable that you can worry about losing him to somebody else.
Yeah.
Let me throw this scenario out at you. This is something that's, you remember last year, you mentioned it briefly. The Dolphins were trying to arrange a way to get Sean Payton to be their head coach, and get Tom Brady to be his quarterback, and they were going to work this magical deal out and play in Miami.
Yeah.
Tom Brady's a free agent, and it's unlikely he goes back to the Bucs.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see a scenario where he goes to Denver?
Oh, absolutely not. No, too much money tied up in Russell Wilson and all that. Yeah. I mean, you don't want to pay a guy that you give. I think he also has a fully guaranteed contract just to have him sit on the bench. It's more likely Tom Brady's going to go to San Francisco rather than
my next question.
Yeah.
Okay. So you see him going to San Francisco.
Yeah, it does of two reasons. One, San Fran has one more year before that window closes because they're a team that's been having bad injury luck for most of their time with Kyle Shanahan as their head coach. And some of their key players, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, and a couple other players on defense are starting to get up in years, and they're not as durable as they once were, and they want to get a championship. And the one thing that's holding them back, sadly, is quarterback. It's either too limited or it's hurt. Tom Brady has only had 1 year where he's missed due to injury, and it was a torn ACL from a now banned rule where you can't go low on a quarterback. So I can see Kyle Shanahan telling John Lynch, hey, I need a quarterback that can play all these games. Tom Brady's a free agent. Go get him. And I can see Brady going, you know what? Let's have this one last ride because this year stunk. I played terrible. I was noisy. Let's go over here. I can make it work.
Well, it's his kind of team. It's built around defense. Got a lot of weapons. He's not expected to carry this team. He's got a great running game. He can just pad his stats a little bit with a lot of the weapons he's got. He's got a George Kittle who would be his Gronk. He's got a much better running game. They brought Christian McCaffrey over there to go to the Super Bowl. You know, and Brock Purdy's going to probably have Tommy John surgery. If not, I know he's trying to rehab it, but he's going to have to get Tommy John surgery. I'm sorry.
It's not. It doesn't look like it's Tommy John surgery. It's just basic UCL surgery where they just repair the muscle. It doesn't look like he needs complete elbow reconstruction, which is what Tommy John surgery is. So,
so
there is hope, you know. But Brock Purdy, I don't think might start again if Tom Brady goes there.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. You know, so Brock Purdy won't be ready. They're going to lose Garoppolo in free agency, and we already talked about Trey Lance. Trey Lance is not ready to go.
Yeah.
Who better for the 49ers to get that championship window run, get Brady, let Trey Lance play behind him, or even better, let Purdy and Lance fight out to be the number 2 guy, and you get your championship. Brady rides off into the sunset, and then you can turn it over to one of those 2 young guys or make a move in the draft to get another quarterback. Who knows? But I agree. I think that's going to be kind of where you with this. You know, Cooper Rush, I think Cooper Rush is a lot like Andy Dalton to an extent at this age, but um, I think Cooper Rush is a lot like Teddy Bridgewater. The longer he's out there, the more his limitations show. I don't think that the Giants are ready to cut bait on Daniel Jones yet.
No,
Jacoby Brissett is the guy you would go to if you have your quarterback of the future on the roster already. Yeah. So I mean, I think that's when you start thinking about those kind of guys. Brissett's the kind of guy I would have if I've got a young quarterback that needs to learn for a year in the building.
You know, as a fun quarterback, I want to see get moved off of, see the Saints, their names get thrown out there as a possible destination. Ryan Tannehill. I just want to see how it reacts.
Ryan Tannehill, maybe 5 years ago, I'm just not, I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like his window's kind of closed, being anything more than a backup guy. That's my only concern with that. I didn't show this comment earlier, but it says Payton was not Denver's first choice. Well, yeah. Because the reality is a team doesn't want to have to trade draft picks. They would like to keep that first round pick. They would like to keep that second round pick. So that's a lot of the issue. I think why Payton didn't get the market he was expecting, because why am I going to trade draft picks away when I can go try and get somebody else? And this is the reason why I didn't think Dennis Allen should get fired, was if I'm going to go and get someone else, imagine what it would be like if the Saints right now were they didn't have a head coach, and we were looking at guys like Dan Quinn, Kellen Moore, the level, the offensive coordinator for the Bengals, who I can't even think of his name right now. You're not getting DeMeco Ryans, but the fans don't want DeMeco Ryans because they don't want a defensive-minded coach. They want an offensive-minded coach.
Mm-hmm.
So, Eric Bieniemy, you're waiting on those guys. That would just be a tough sell. And you see that now with what happened with Denver and what happened with Arizona, what's happening with Arizona. You don't have a coach that you can go to. I think that's why Mike McCarthy didn't get fired. I think that's why the Chargers didn't fire their head coach. There was not this. You take Sean Payton out of the mix, and you got Jim Harbaugh as the only other coach out there with a name.
Yeah.
You're scrambling, looking for some guy. You don't see a guy who is like the next wonder kid. There's not the next great guy out there. You see a bunch of fair to middling coaches that maybe you might strike gold with him. Maybe he turns into another Nathaniel Hackett. I mean, really.
Yeah. I mean, with Sean Payton in Denver, Denver probably had Sean Payton out of the third or fourth option. Of course, they wanted Jim Harbaugh. Heck, they went back out to Michigan and tried to convince him to really get a gander. Just no offer was there. They wanted Dan Quinn, the current defensive coordinator for the Cowboys, but Quinn, he said, "Nah, I'm staying in Dallas because I'm when he's betting that McCarthy's going to get fired and he's going to try and woo Jerry Jones into giving him that coaching job." Then they wanted DeMeco Ryans, and they really loved him in the interview process and all that, but Ryans ended up going to Houston on a 6-year deal, so he's staying there for a while. So it's either Sean Payton.
He's a former linebacker with the Texans.
Texans drafted him back in 2006 in the second round, and really love the area. I think
it's the same reason why the Carolina Panthers picked Frank Reich. He was their first quarterback. He was a quarterback there from the expansion draft that they brought in 1995. He played some games until Kerry Collins was ready, but he's got a tie to that franchise.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for the Broncos, it was either you got to cough up the picks for Sean Payton, or you're gonna have to take your chances.
Who are you going to get?
Yeah,
You're going to get the Eagles offensive coordinator. You're going to get and maybe have him turn you down.
actually, the Eagle he actually did though, apparent because he told any possibly interested teams, "Hey, I'm staying with the Eagles for at least one more year." I mean,
Yeah.
Detroit Lions offensive coordinator said, "Nope, staying with Detroit one more year."
Yeah.
And he turned out some jobs, which if Dennis Allen does get moved off of, I would take either one of those guys, either Ben Johnson or John Gannon, because both those guys I think would be very interesting as head coaches.
This was not a good year for coaches because it was not this offense that you saw out there, or even outside of D'Amico Ryans with the 49ers. I think that's why Ryan Nielsen got hired by Atlanta. There was not these great assistant coaches where everybody's going, that's the guy I want. I want to build my team just like this other team.
Yeah.
Just didn't see that out there this year. Teams just didn't have that sense of confidence. And then same with college football. So then, if you don't see the great assistants, you're going to go to the college ranks. Who are you going to pull out of the college ranks? Are you going to try and woo Kirby Smith out of Kirby Smart? I'm sorry, out of Kirby Smith's a baseball player. Kirby Smart out of out of Georgia? No. You're certainly not going to go get the head coach of the team whose ass he kicked. I mean, you're not going to get TCU's head coach. Jim Harbaugh was the big name, and he turns everybody down.
You ain't going to get Lincoln Riley.
You're not going to do Lincoln Riley. Where are you going to go? Where's your hot college football coach? You're going to take one of Saban's assistants? That hasn't worked out well, So I mean, it's just it's that that's the reality of your coaching circle right now. Give it a couple years. These staffs and these teams have been picked pretty clean now. You've got a lot of new faces, new coaches. I mean, we're averaging a third of the coaching, head coaching positions turning over every season. Your quality of coach is going to run out eventually. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing about Kirby Smart with Georgia, he built his team just like Saban built Alabama. He learned well from Saban, and he got the turnovers. I mean, to me, TCU, I think it was a TCU game.
Was it
No. It was a game where they went for it. No, it wasn't Ohio State. It was a game where they went for it. They had a 13 or 14 play drive, and they went for it on 4th and goal instead of kicking the field goal. And I'm almost positive it was TCU and Georgia. So they got nothing out of it. They got stuffed on 4th and short. And then Georgia took the ball and in 3 plays scored a touchdown, and the route was on.
Yeah, that was against TCU.
Yeah, it was like a 15-play drive or something ridiculous like that. 15 or 18-play drive, and they went for it on 4th down a couple times, got absolutely nothing out of it, and then the next time, the Georgia scored in like 3 plays and it was over. And the same thing, and TCU wouldn't even gotten there if Jim Harbaugh knew how to manage the clock.
Very much.
I mean, it just. So, I mean, it's not that I'm ripping. I don't want to make fun of TCU because TCU deserves all the credit for making it as far as they did. Notre Dame usually gets their teeth kicked in the first playoff game for being overranked. TCU clearly is not overranked. They belong there. But, it's just, you're right. You're right. But that's to me, that was the big difference in that game when he made that mistake, that coaching mistake. Um, so we've gone around and around on a bunch of stuff today about the quarterbacks, the Sean Payton trade. I mean, I didn't even ask you this. Are you happy with this trade? We didn't even talk about that. Are you
Yeah.
happy with the trade?
Well,
Do you go
well,
ahead?
if I could sum up my feelings, it's from a clip from the old school SpongeBob SquarePants where SpongeBob and Patrick are trying to sell chocolate, and they come across this crazy guy who's apparently a chocolate fanatic, and as soon as he catches up with him, he goes, "Ah, finally!" And he just gives him this big pile of money because he's just this absolutely crazy for chocolate, and that's just my feeling towards it. It's just I wanted it over with because I felt like it was something that if the Saints were not going to be able to trade away Sean Payton this year, then 2023 was going to look even more bleak because you had less draft capital.
Yeah.
You had a lot less room for error because you didn't have any of those top end picks to really kind of do something, and it makes 2024 and what happens then even more daunting and important.
Yeah.
But now, I was going to be satisfied with nearly with whatever capital we had. I mean, if we got to trade off with Arizona and they say, here's our second, third, and fourth round pick, we can't give you our first, I would have taken that too. That's
Well, yeah, that was my thing. I knew Arizona wasn't going to give you the number 3 overall pick. They just not.
Yeah.
There's no way you were getting that pick. You weren't getting a top 5 pick from anybody.
No.
Because teams can't afford to give that away. That's giving away the golden ticket. You need those picks because your team is terrible.
Yeah,
And if you're hiring a new coach and you can give away multiple high picks, you're setting your new coach up for failure because you have to look at it from the other team's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
I need players to make this team better. I'm not going to get those players if I don't have draft picks. I got to have draft picks so I can get good players, so I can build my team around this coach and win football games. So you're not getting those picks. My fear was we were going to end up getting like 2 second-round picks, a second-round pick this year and a second-round pick next year that maybe could turn into a first-rounder if certain thresholds were met. Maybe.
Yeah, which
that didn't happen. I was happy to get a first-round pick this year, and I expected it to be Denver's pick, only because the other teams had, unless you were going to get the Texans, who had 2 first-rounders this year and 2 first-rounders next year, there was just no way you were going to get a high enough draft pick. So I'm happy with that. I'm happy with the.
I mean, you got the picks you traded away to the Eagles essentially back. I mean, I said this earlier in the show. Even though they gave away the 3rd-round pick, that you can easily replenish that. Compensatory picks, make an in-season trade, play it smart, you'll get it back.
Yeah. Why? Let's win a game first, Houston. Let's win a game first. We had a great defense too, and a lot of people feel like the defensive coordinator is more of a defensive coordinator than he is a head coach. And you guys all know about Wade Phillips too. So here's my thing then. Why do you think the Saints gave away a 3rd-round pick for this trade? Why do you think they did that instead of just getting 2 picks for Payton?
My theory is Denver did not want to give up any of their 2024 capital. Because they knew, like, if they weren't able to win the Super Bowl because the AFC is very tough with the Bengals, and you got the Chiefs and the Chargers in your own division, plus the Bills. They wanted some 2024 capital for probably some defensive talent that they might have to move off of because they're probably going to need to fix that offense as much as possible.
I think you froze,
2024. I'm sorry?
I think you
What,
froze
I
a second
froze?
ago. So, yeah.
Yeah, you kind of froze too. Might be
Okay.
me. But yeah, I think. But I'm trying to reiterate, I think it's the 20. They want their 2024 capital to kind of remain intact, and they just threw the Saints kind of threw a third round pick in there because I think that's what the Broncos kind of wanted.
I think that for the Broncos, they had to give them a third round pick because the Broncos were going to give them a first round this year and probably a third rounder or a fourth rounder next year that was going to be a contingent pick that could
Mm-hmm.
be up higher depending on how the team went, to how the team season goes in 2023. And I think the Saints just didn't want to take that chance. They were just like, no, we're not doing it.
Yeah,
We want a guaranteed pick. We don't want to play this conditional pick shit. So we're gonna go ahead and we'll give you our third round pick if you promise to give us the second round pick. You agree to give us your second round pick? That's what we're going to take. I don't think they were going to get 2 first rounders. I think that's just like you start with this and
yeah,
then you negotiate from there. You don't start low and negotiate up. You start up high and negotiate down. Think about when you were a kid, you know, can I do this? No. Well, what if I do this? No. What if I do this? No. And eventually you work your way to where there's an agreement. That's the way you get it.
yeah.
That's the way you get what you want.
I felt like
Um,
I felt like the only 2 first round pick scenario where it would have been plausible is if Sean Payton wanted to go to Carolina because Carolina would have to pay the in division tax.
oh, I think if yeah, I don't think there was ever a chance that the Saints were going to let Peyton go
Yeah,
to Carolina. If Carolina was willing to pay the cleaner's price, then the Saints would have let him go. But they're not going to let him go for nothing.
mm-hmm.
It would have been a lot of stuff,
It would have been the
um,
Gruden trade essentially.
even more than the Gruden trade. And that's the other thing too. Gruden was an active coach. Peyton had been out of the league for a year. Um, so we didn't talk about this much. We kind of danced around a little bit, but the Chiefs and Bengals played in the AFC Championship game on Sunday. Several people, and I don't. I've talked enough about that. I feel like there's teams want certain outcome. I mean, the league wants certain outcomes for a narrative, for a story. You're getting already first 2 black quarterbacks facing each other. You got the Kelsey brothers playing each other. You've got the Andy Reid Bowl. So there's a lot of stories they got because it was the Chiefs versus the Eagles. Um, I still think you would have had some good storylines with Eagles versus Bengals. Um, but some of the calls that were made, and this has been my complaint going back to 2018. Some of the calls that were made, I'm not saying they were suspicious. I'm going to say they were questionable. Um, to begin with, the 2 third downs. Now, there's a video running around showing of the ref running from the side in the corner of the screen, waving off the play on third down. But that play went on for a long time, and they were lining up to punt before they said, "Oh yeah, by the way, that play was dead," because of crowd noise. How do you feel about some of the calls that were made in that game?
They need full time referees. Like they
Yeah,
like at you got at some point you have to realize it's going to take effect on the game. I mean, right now the NFL doesn't care because as long as they keep printing their own money,
for
they're
sure.
not going to make any significant changes to the game. Like they can afford full time refs, but just don't. And I feel like the quality game would improve with full time refs because they can look over the back calls they made, look at all the patterns and such, and it kind of fix some of these problems that they are having. But it's just going to keep happening with how they just have referees are right now.
Well, to me, what drives me crazy is their reluctance to embrace technology to help them make better calls.
That too.
Um, to me, you don't have a guy in New York. You have a guy at the stadium who's
Mm-hmm.
up in the booth, and he can, just like in college football, can buzz down to the official. We're going to review this. We're going to review everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have coaches' challenges, but at the same time, the officials can review any play they want to at any time in a game. They can buzz down and say, "Hey, man, I think you need to take a look at this." Um, the first instance, I think, was that Eagles game, where now, granted, the Eagles won 28 or 31-7, so it wasn't like this game was that close. But early in that game, that first touchdown Philadelphia got on fourth down, no, that wasn't a catch. Um, but the Eagles ran to the line real quick, snapped the ball. So you're as a coach, you get two challenges. This is the first series of the game. You don't want to burn off one of your challenges already. You can't see the replay because Philadelphia's not going to show that replay to the crowd.
Oh, yeah.
Television saw it, but I think an official in the booth could buzz down to the official in the field and say, "Hey, take another look at this play real quick and just see if this was a catch or not."
Yeah. I
And
think what you're referring to, they did this a lot in the wild card round with several different teams where a play is about to happen. Then I think they had a guy in New York or a guy in the stadium say, "Hey, come take a look at this, double check it."
Mhm.
And they stopped the play. No challenges were called. And I think this was something that they were testing out in this playoffs, and it was very rampant throughout the wild card round.
And I just think those are the kind of things that need to happen. Um, I think you should have the ability. I think they should look at penalties too.
Oh,
Relook
absolutely.
at penalties because this game is moving so fast. And yeah, the officials can see, but sometimes they can't see everything.
Yeah.
Um, and review these plays and either be able to throw a flag because they missed a call or pick a flag up because the call shouldn't have been made.
Yeah. I don't know
Um,
if, oh, Dad, I don't know if you heard it out through my window, but apparently Joey Bosa is still screaming at a false start penalty on the Jaguars.
that's one of the plays I was thinking about because I saw the
Yeah.
false start too.
Yeah. And
Um,
apparently the Eagles right tackle, Lane Johnson, also had a couple of false starts. So there's definitely some arguments there. And even a missed rough in the passer call, which was clear rough in the passer on the Chiefs, but just wasn't called. I mean,
I just think roughing the passer kind of calls should be reviewed
yeah,
because sometimes it looks like it's roughing the passer and it's not. Like I'm
yeah,
going back to a Chiefs. This is one where the Chiefs got screwed when they were playing. I think it was the Patriots when Tom Brady was there. They ruled that
it was
he,
offsides actually.
which one, yeah, the offsides one, but also there was one where they reached over and they tapped Brady on the shoulder pad,
Mhm.
and they said he hit his helmet because you saw the jersey flop up.
Yeah,
That kind of stuff. So I think those kind of things, um, you know, you should be able to look at some of these penalties, go back and look and go, oh, I really didn't see whatever it is you claim. Now, obviously, you're not going to go review holding calls, but I think pass interference, especially because they're not spot fouls. I mean, they're spot fouls, they're not 15-yard penalties. Those are kind of penalties you should look at. And I think the league needs to embrace the technology that's available today. It's not like how it was um, 30 years ago when they had the booths reviewing stuff where you're using videotape and you got a video machine, you're going back and forth. It's digital now, it's instant. You've got so many more cameras at a high definition, you can
hmm
zoom in things a lot better. And hell, sometimes I think they ought to put um, an RFI chip or some kind of chip in the football.
there's already a chip in the football, and it's only used for when they want to detect the ball across the plane. And NFL caught a little heat over it because for one particular, I think it was against the Ravens versus the Bengals when the Bengals punch the ball out and return it for a touchdown, which ended up winning the game.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was the official NFL referees released a tweet saying that the ball did not cross the plane where the chip could be detected in it, and people were like, "Whoa, wait! There's a chip in the football. Why is there a chip in the football?"
Yeah, but when you talk about these big pileups and you're talking about spotting the ball, I think the chip could tell you exactly where it is on the field at all times, and you get better spots of the football. Because how many times have we seen spots where, oh man, that's a terrible spot, we didn't get the first down, or holy crap, there's a generous spot, you gave that guy like a yard and a half on that spot. So those kind of things, I just feel like those are the kind of things that the league needs to embrace to become a better league, better officiate league, because you shouldn't have officials determining so many outcomes by their calls and non-calls without technology backing up those things. You understand what I'm saying by that? I mean, you need evidence. Present that evidence. Don't make it purely a judgment call. Some of the things that we saw now, I said and I felt bad for this kid for Cincinnati, but when Mahomes ran that football, I said, okay, he got the first down. Boom, he hit the guy and went, oh, there we go. Field goal range now, because that's 15 yards tacked onto that. I knew as soon as he hit him and they both went sailing to the bench, flags are going to fly. There was no way getting around that. I'm not complaining about that, honestly.
No.
I mean, that's how college football is.
Yeah.
I'm not one of these guys like, hey man, come on, let's wrap it up. Let's go. I enjoy the game. The game used to be 3 hours. It's now down to about 2 hours and some change, because halftime is 12 minutes. And with passing offenses, that game is zooming by. It really is, because guys are even more accurate than they were. So it's not a lot of stoppages play. That Carolina Saints game, as horrible as that game was, I think it was over by 2:30.
Yeah, it was. It lasted barely 2.5 hours. Normal NFL game is, at least in my time, it's about 2 hours 45 minutes, maybe 3 hours. Only 3.5 hours if you got overtime, or there's just a lot of quick scoring.
And I know why the league has compressed the time, because they want to be able to have 2 entire games played without having to jump over for the double headers to the next game, or having people miss the first quarter of the next game of the afternoon game because the early game went over time. I know, I get that, because that used to be a common thing when I was a kid, watching the games in the 70s. You're looking at your watch going, hey man, the Saints supposed to play in San Francisco at 3:00. It's 2:55, and we got about 8.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter in this early. It ain't gonna make it. Timmy's still in the well. We're not getting out of this thing anytime soon. So yeah. By the way, that's the game. The game I have on right now in the background, I've saw it a couple times. You guys might be able to see Bobby Hebert. That is the 1988 game where the Saints beat the Broncos 42-0. The Broncos were the defending AFC champions. They played in the Super Bowl that year against the Washington Redskins when Timmy Smith scored all those touchdowns. But yeah, Elway started that game, and they pulled him out for Kubiak, Gary Kubiak, because they were that bad. But the Broncos didn't go to the Super Bowl that year, but they went to the Super Bowl the following year. It's only to get skull dragged by the poor Bob. You can tell Bob's not on his show because I'm talking about these Super Bowls. Get skull dragged by the 49ers in the Superdome in 1989. So
was that when Jerry Rice had 3 touchdowns?
Yeah, that's the Black 59 Razor game. When
All
you
right.
see Joe
Because I know
Montana.
they got skull dragged by Joe Gibbs Redskins, and then they got skull dragged by the Niners, and then it's not
And
until the
the year
'90s.
before the Redskins destroyed them, the Giants, that was Phil Simms' almost perfect game. He was like 25 of 28. He only had 3 incompletions the whole game. Yeah. Yeah, that was the 3 Elway routes.
Yeah.
And they got worse and worse each time.
Yep, and in the game you talked about that 42-0 Saints win. That was the last time the Saints also beat the Broncos in the Dome. They still haven't done it since.
No, they haven't. They have not. I had those highlights on a little bit ago. Y'all probably couldn't see them, but I had the 2016 game with the mysterious white foot along the sideline on the blocked field goal.
Mm-hmm.
You had the in 2000 Aaron Brooks's first game as a starter at home because he started on the road against the Rams. First game as a starter at home, and he had over 400 yards passing and 100 yards rushing, but the Saints still lost because they couldn't stop.
Ruben Drones.
Is it Ruben Drones?
I'm pretty sure.
It was Gary.
I'm pretty sure. I think it was Ruben Drones because whoever the running back was, I think ran for like 200 something yards. Because
yes, it was. It was a guy who's the Mile High Salute, Mike Anderson. That's who it was.
Oh, Mike Anderson. I knew. Right, Ruben Drones was 2000. Ruben Drones was 2004. My fault.
Mm-hmm. It was Mike Anderson. Mike Anderson rushed for over 200 yards in that game. And that's why they lost that game.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Calvin's got a question for you, Matt. If you could have any player from this draft, regardless where you pick, who would you pick?
Bijan Robinson, the running back from Texas. He is a very special running back. He can basically do everything. You want him to run in between tackles, in between the guards? He can do that. You want him to have a good breakaway run for a touchdown? He can do that. He's very agile. He can line up wide to play wide receiver. He can pass block. If you want to back that, he can pass the eye test where you just look at him and you go, now that's a running back. He can do that. He just ticks every single box you need from a running back. Now, and he's one of those guys where now in the NFL you don't take a running back in the first round, but he's one of those guys that's going to get teams thinking, I could use a better run game, and I could use that exceptional running back in Robinson. You just watch him, tape on him, you're going to love what you see.
Matt's more the draft guy than I am now. Senior Bowl's this week, so look for the guy who has a big game in the Senior Bowl or really has a good week of practice in the Senior Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
Saints have 2 coaches out there, Ronald Curry and someone else. I forgot.
DJ Williams, the quarterback coach.
Yeah, so you should have a lot of eyes on players. Senior Bowl week was how Trevor Penning got on their radar.
Yeah,
because of how he had his practice that week.
And Alontae Taylor.
Yeah, and Alontae Taylor. On the flip side, Marcus Davenport got on their radar because of his Senior Bowl week.
I think Eric McCoy also in the Senior Bowl in 2019?
Probably okay. Eric McCoy was. I think Ruiz was too. But those are the guys. Yeah, those are the guys that really helped them. Jimmy Gumbo. The increase in the salary cap should help keep a couple of veterans. Yeah, they only have about $60 million to shave off the cap this year.
Yeah, about 57. There's a couple of guys that can restructure and get a lot of money. Nick Underhill already made a fantastic article about it. The restructures, who to cut, and some players that you can look to see what you can do with. But
I mean, it's a shame Michael Thomas's time's at an end. I've got his jersey on, but his contract is structured in a way that the Saints can release him without taking a hit like they would before.
Yeah.
Clearly, Jameis Winston's gone. I think there's a couple other guys that are going to be gone from the team. Will Lutz will probably be one of them. If Will Lutz isn't gone, Will Lutz is going to have to restructure that deal. But I kind of feel like he's going to be gone.
Yeah, I think they're going to add another place kicker, either as an undrafted free agent or maybe like a veteran body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, so there's going to be there'll be some turnover. I think they bring back Caden Ellis for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I think they're going to fight tooth and nail to keep
let him leave. Yeah.
I can also see Dennis Allen probably trying to slide back into that 3 linebacker sets after doing 3 safety sets for a while, because now he's got 3 capable linebackers that are finding coverage and good in run support.
Yeah. So a friend of mine sent me this mock draft simulator, and I couldn't help but think of you as soon as I saw it.
It's the PFF one?
PFF one, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as soon as the Saints made the trade of Payton, he's already got the Saints picking at 29. Gervin Dexter from Florida is his
Gervon Dexter.
Interesting. Defensive tackle. Hooker, quarterback, Tennessee in the 2nd round. But one of your favorite running backs in the 3rd round, Zach Charbonnet from UCLA.
Yep.
You made me watch the UCLA game to watch this guy. You know that when I was in town.
Yeah, I was watching plenty of that. Charbonnet, to me, passes my eye test. He does a lot of good things. Well, I think he'd be a good short yardage in between tackles kind of back. He's not much of a receiver. I mean, he can catch the dump off pass and run a couple routes, but he's not a guy you split out wide. I think he'd be a nice 3rd round pick. But I find the Gervon Dexter pick in the 1st round very interesting. He's another player that he passes the eye test, big, very long. My big problem is he doesn't use technique or any kind of technical skills to win his matchups. It's all pure athleticism, and that's it. You go the bull rush or use his speed and explosiveness. I just want to see a little more technique out of him, but he'd be a fun play. He'd be a fun player.
How big is this guy? I didn't even look him up. How big is he? Is he a 1 technique or a 3 technique?
He's a 3 tech. He's a 3 tech. 6'6", weighs about 305. Long arms, big, strong.
You're gonna need some more out of him.
Yeah.
You would need, and without Nielsen in there, I think it's one of the Nielsen's strengths was being able to develop these guys. I do think we need defensive tackles. His first offensive tackle isn't until pick 115. He's got Tyler Steen from Alabama going at 115. If I'm picking a tackle there, I'm probably trying to kick a tackle I can kick inside to guard and play left guard.
Probably the best bet is probably either Kansas State's Cooper Beebe or Braden Daniels. I think it's from Utah, because both those guys, they play tackle, but Cooper doesn't have the reach to play tackle. He's got pretty short arms, and he's much better inside. And Braden Daniels doesn't have the agility to really kick outside and handle more speed rushers, kind of like Pete.
We're going to have to get you back in when we start getting close to the draft and start breaking down positions. Bob and I are going to go through that. But, the big news, of course, getting Payton. Now you have an idea what your draft is going to be. That's where we're going to focus on free agency first, what players they're going to make moves on, what players they're going to keep, how they can get under the cap, and how can they still spend money while getting under the cap, which they're going to do.
Yeah.
Quarterback obviously is a need, but we can't break the bank on anybody. Nobody out there is worth breaking the bank on. But I think you explore all options for quarterback. You explore free agency, you explore the draft, or trade possibilities. You do it all, and
Yeah,
I would like him. But
yeah, I mean that's a you're paying close Aaron Donald money because he had a fantastic year and with the Commanders in this year. So if they don't hit him with a transition tag, I'm getting him on speed out saying, "Hey, we'll throw the bank at you. Come improve our defensive line."
I tell you what, if you can get that front four defense really solid, you and you can just rush four.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's what the 49ers did. That's why the 49ers were as effective as they were.
Yeah,
And we had times we could do that.
that's what
But
the Eagles are doing. I mean, look at their
yeah,
front four.
yeah, you can do that. You become a much more elite defense. And if you can get a power runner to go along with Alvin Kamara, and you get a quarterback who can make quick decisions and be pretty accurate, fairly. I mean, Dalton completed almost 67% of his passes. You get a quarterback make quick decisions, is willing to be patient, dink and dunk, and then take the big shots when you get to midfield.
Mm-hmm.
Some of this offense looks a lot better, and I really think where the building blocks are in this draft is defensive and offensive line. You've got to
Yeah,
build those two up. You build those two up, and suddenly the play calling is going to get a lot better because you have the time to run the more complicated plays. You have the offensive lineman who can run the screens well. You have the defensive lineman who can pressure the quarterback, push the pocket in the quarterback's face, and force those turnovers that you didn't get this year.
yeah,
So there's we'll see as the free agency period opens up. But I mean, I'm not going out and making draft selections yet. I'm going to wait and see. Let's see what we do in free agency first.
yeah. I also want to see those compensatory picks because the Saints are projected to have the Nico relevant pick in this year's
Yeah,
class, in this year's
yeah,
draft. So that's going to be interesting.
yeah, exactly. All right. Bob will be back next week. He had a school function he was doing this evening. Um, he's going to be on the Bayou Blitz, I believe, tomorrow night, talking more about the Payton trade. You'll get his thoughts on the Payton trade, where the Saints can go from here. Next week, we'll break down. We talked a lot about the quarterback, how we get some of Bob's thoughts on the quarterback position, but then we're going to focus on the running back position. We're going to go position by position, building up to, of course, free agency and the draft. 2 weeks from now is the Super Bowl. I believe there's some kind of flag football thing coming on this weekend that no one's going to watch.
Yeah. You got the
Uh,
Senior Bowl, you got the East West Shrine Bowl, and you got the
yeah,
HBCU Bowl, which I'm very curious about the Senior Bowl with how Ronald Curry calls the national team's offense.
yeah.
So I really want to see that happen, how that flows, because I want him to be offensive coordinator to take over Pete Carmichael.
Here's the thing, and this is the last thought I'm going to leave everybody with. Here's the thing about Pete Carmichael. Pete Carmichael could design the offense. Like I kept saying over and over during the season, Joe Brady could design Sean Payton's offense, but he didn't know when to call the plays. If you get a play caller, you get a third person in there as an assistant coach / play caller on game day, and he's calling the offensive plays while you're Carmichael's designing the offense. That could be a positive step. And I think Ronald Curry is somebody to watch. I still think Cody Burns is somebody to watch on the staff. Senior Bowl week is also job week. You're going to see a lot of assistant coaches walking around looking for jobs. So you're going to start seeing the Saints bringing in guys, some changes in the staff and some additional coaches because they still haven't replaced the guys that left. So there's a lot of things that are going to happen between now and March 1st. And then in 2 weeks is the Super Bowl. Bob and I are going to talk about that. We're probably going to be on opposite sides on who we think is going to win the game. But there's always stuff to talk about. Meantime, thank you, Matt, for joining us. I appreciate you last minute filling in. I know you got to go to bed. I got to get to bed too. I got work the next day. Stay warm. I know he's got the freezing temperatures. We don't. What's your temperature like outside? What does your computer say?
Let's see. It is currently 32. Hit freezing.
Okay, you're at 32. I'm at 63, and it's overcast and muggy. So big difference. I think we're getting a little bit of the cool front right now because it was 68 when we started the show. So in the meantime, thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you next time Under the Dome. Good night, everybody.